Get you caught up on the latest COVID-19 information here in Indiana. The number of new cases is striking. On Thursday, we found out about an additional 747. We've never had 4 days in a row with new cases this high. And if you're still wondering if we're really trending higher, take a look at this dotted line specifically here. The average of the last 7 days at each point, that steep incline is a real concern to health experts. We did a little number crunching, and the average number of new cases the last 4 days, 700 a day. Think about this another way. In the last 4 days, that's one new case every 2 minutes. Every 2 minutes, another Hoosier diagnosed with COVID-19. Something else struck us this week as we were breaking down some of this information. This shows the cases all the way back to early days here in Indiana, but mid-March is when it picked up. So this is not the first here in Indiana. Take a look at this peak here in late April, early May. You can see the trend line here. This top column is many of the meat plant cases in Cass County, the highest point on April 26th. Now compare that to where the trend line is now. They're just about the same place, only a handful of cases off for the average per day. Early next week, it would not be surprising to see the numbers dip a bit with the weekend, but certainly everyone will be watching to see what ends up happening. And now to the COVID-19 plans announced from schools and colleges all across the state. IU is not requiring every student to get tested before arriving at the Bloomington campus this fall, but students living in campuses, residences, or Greek houses will have to get a test within 10 days of arrival. Purdue, on the other hand, is requiring tests for all students. They're offering at-home screenings with the help of a telehealth advisor. Hamilton Southeastern announced it's starting the school year virtually, lasting through Labor Day. And Franklin Community Schools out in Johnson County is delaying the start of their school year by nearly 2 weeks. They won't return until August 17th.
Every year, the state high school band championships are held here at Lucas Oil Stadium, but not this year. They've been called off because of the threat of the COVID-19 pandemic. Some high schools have already started practicing for their big moments, their big performances. But the Indiana State School Music Association called off all competitive performances. They didn't want to put lives at risk, with some 70,000 kids performing, plus thousands of volunteers helping them out. The news hit many of the students hard. They've been practicing for years for their big moments, their big competitions. We're told some of them, when they got the news, cried.
You can find details on all of these stories right now. Just go to WTHR.com/coronavirus. So is the time to push the COVID lockdown button again. Yesterday, at least parts of Florida lowering the boom with curfews, closed bars and restaurants. Florida is one of 18 states quietly identified by the White House as being in trouble. An unreleased study calling for new lockdowns. As for the first time, the country reported more than 77,000 cases in a single day, and many of the states that led the way in reopening are now seeing the biggest increases. Tom Costello has the latest.
Across much of the southern U.S. from east to west, another day of scorching heat and hospitals overwhelmed with COVID patients. At the University of Mississippi Med Center in Jackson.
They may live, they may not. Unfortunately, a lot don't. And when you're on a hamster wheel and a lot of people die, it's tiring.
COVID is exploding across the state. More than 1,000 new cases each day. Mississippi, one of 18 states in the coronavirus red zone, identified by the White House Coronavirus Task Force in a report sent to states but not made public, obtained by the Center for Public Integrity. The report suggests more than a dozen states should revert to more stringent measures, including limiting social gatherings, closing bars and gyms, and asking residents to wear masks outside the home, including in Georgia, where the governor has said no mandate. With the nation's death toll approaching 140,000, Dr. Anthony Fauci today said the time to act is now.
I think the time has come that we really do need to take a look at what's going on and see if we can intensify the things we do to prevent the resurgences that we're seeing.
In Florida, with nearly 14,000 new cases in one day and a death toll exceeding 4,700, Miami Beach announced an 8 p.m. curfew in the entertainment district. Restaurants and bars must close. Broward County announced an 11 p.m. curfew.
We are in unprecedented times. This is not something that we take lightly.
In Texas, FEMA is sending 14 refrigerated trucks and more body bags. Already, more than 3,700 people have died. In Arizona, where some people have waited 8 hours and longer to get tested.
This is the third time in 2 months I've had a sore throat. I just want to be sure.
A new state-federal surge site aims to test 5,000 people per day in low-income areas.
So we've got multi-generational families living under one roof. Grandma, the aunt gets COVID. People don't know, they're scared. They've got young ones. They've got to try to go to work.
The hope? Once identified, COVID-positive patients will self-isolate. Meanwhile, volunteers from a former epicenter, New York, are spreading out across the country to lend a hand. Marsal Sarwari's own father died of COVID. Now she's in Houston.
For me, this has been a personal journey due to the fact that I lost my father in this, and I just want to be able to help other people to be able to be tested.
5 months in, this pandemic is still out of control. Tom Costello, NBC News, Washington.